So, the hot topic around the water cooler and probably on everyone's lips this morning is no doubt last night's presidential debate. Personally, at this early ish stage in the game, I personally refuse to get involved in the semantics of badgering. The semantics of badgering anyone on stage last night and anyone who was not on stage last night, but who was the obvious elephant in the room. As a voting citizen, I would like to say that actually, none of the candidates, in my opinion, including the candidate whom I voted for last election, are not strong or harsh enough. Wow, can you believe I had the gall to say that? As Fox and Friends pointed out just this morning, most candidates, including possibly and perhaps 45 himself, are seeking to secure the vote of the younger generation. You know, the TikTok and Instagram famous sorts. But honestly, who gives a damn about what those under 30 or 35 immature spoiled brats think? Now, while I don't want to paint all of these young people with the same broad brushstroke, most of these young adults make young adults of past generations, including those who fought for their and our rights and our freedoms, those primarily young men who fought in World War I, World War II, and like my father, may he rest in peace, who went over to Vietnam at the tender age of 17. They have those young men rolling over in their graves, and if they are still among us, burying their heads in the sand or wishing they were dead. These mostly self-absorbed individuals seem to be more concerned about twerking on TikTok than actually making or having an impact. Making or having a positive impact, one that has less than or nothing to do with shaking their derriere on social media. An impact that would rather or instead create a better tomorrow, not only for themselves, but for future generations. We are repeatedly reminded and repeatedly see the likes of these people as the byproduct of a modern new world, a byproduct of modern new America. Joe Biden's America, Kamala Harris's America, AOC's America, John Fetterman's America, woke America, or should I more accurately say, woke North America. We have seen these people on our TV screens that embarrass themselves and their families and our country, especially on Jesse Waters and especially when he sends Johnny out. These people seem to know less than my 10-year-old, who was homeschooled for 4 years, and they supposedly have already been through our so-called acclaimed educational and academic system that is world-renowned. We, the people, have become a nation, and justifiably so, especially under our current leadership, that is the laughingstock of the world. We have forgotten how to live. We especially have forgotten how to live with pride and dignity. Well, of course, unless that pride has to do with some bizarre offshoot minority fringe of LGBTQ plus rights, etc., or some other deranged ideology that just so happens to be the flavor of the day, week, or month. Everyone is talking instead about the border, the fentanyl crisis, etc. But no one dares to talk about daily life and the struggles that are brought about by poor policies and pathetic, power-hungry politicians. Yesterday, I paid $3.89 for a gallon for gas. So it's safe to say that gas is up to almost $4 a gallon. Eggs are close to, if not over, $5 a dozen. And most Americans, hardworking Americans, are living day to day, week to week, and paycheck to paycheck. Now, besides sending and outsourcing all our business, including manufacturing, to overseas, perhaps third world nations, literally killing our economy, we are not looking or thinking outside the box in efforts to learn from other nations and possibly implement the best of what they have to offer. But instead, we are looking to them and implementing the worst, the absolute worst of their policies and protocol. Policies and protocol which have inevitably killed, harmed, and destroyed their own countries, which are why many are fleeing to ours. And so the best solution is to bring those policies here to destroy us as well. For example, let's just go a few hours up north to our cousins in Canada. Canada was charging 5 cents a bag at shopping emporiums for groceries over 20 years ago, a concept that, at least at the time, I personally found unfathomable and perpetually mocked my Canadian, now American husband for. I suggested that Canadians were complacent to the point of being cavalierly compliant with any and all government policy, simply because it was put in place under the guise of being good for the people. The Canadians, I said, had drank the Kool-Aid, and I repeatedly reminded him that Americans, at least I thought, were not nearly as accepting or, dare I say, stupid. Lo and behold, the same protocols have made their way, ironically, comfortably over the border with little pushback. And we are now on a trajectory, at least an attempt, to bring more social policies and protocols to America. Why? To appease the masses. Most often, the M is silent. Does anyone in America truly grasp the concept of what social programs and paradigm exactly translates into? Does anyone know the destruction and devastation they have brought to our neighbors to the north? Social medicine, for instance, translates into long, tedious wait times for medical professionals. Wait times that extend not into days, not weeks, but in most cases into months upon months ad nauseum. These policies have led many Canadians, in fact, to put aside a stash of money to seek out assistance where? In the United States, when the going gets tough. When the going gets tough, the tough up north in Canada get going, and they get going to the United States simply because we seem to have more doctors and more equipment, including more updated equipment. So why? Why, oh, why would we want to even consider taking on those attributes and policies rather than other attributes like their amazing architecture, their amazing architectural integrity and architectural design? Honestly, you would be hard-pressed, even in some of the most socioeconomically challenged neighborhoods, to find a home in Canada made of cheap and tawdry vinyl siding. Most homes up north are made of brick with oftentimes metal roofing, which doesn't break the bank. Roofing in Canada, even metal roofing, doesn't cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most roofing, depending on the size of the home, would run an average Canadian between $10,000 and maybe $25,000, depending on the size of home. Also, well, I dared to go off on a tangent, primarily to point out that life here has become unbearable and unaffordable, even to average middle class and upper middle class, well-educated professionals and hardworking Americans. Still, we as a nation have bigger, much bigger fish to fry, and none of the candidates dared to take the time to point this out. Mr. Trump, who in the past lauded and applauded his personal respect for life and the life of an unborn child, recently lambasted Mr. DeSantis. Why? Because of his strict stance on abortion and the ban he put in place, at least after a certain gestational time period. I would have to say personally, I'm ashamed of what Mr. Trump said, and personally feel that anyone and everyone who is pro-life should stand with Mr. DeSantis. Not only do we need as a nation a 6-week or 10-week ban, what we really need is to put a lid on abortion altogether. If we consider a single-cell organism life on another planet, an unborn child is definitely a life. This country is looking to legally ban rifles and pistols, taking away our right to bear arms. Our right to bear arms in an effort to either go hunting for food or to keep munitions in our homes for protection. So shouldn't we equally be as equally hardcore on preserving the life of an unborn child? Let's face it, if adult men and women, or if men and women who are old enough to engage in sexual acts, are irresponsible enough to throw caution to the wind and throw their legs arbitrarily in the air without being responsible, we should not be here to clean up their mess, nor should we be here for them to make it easy for them to sweep it under the rug and to shirk their responsibilities. In this instance, and I said it before, I'll say it again, I have to side with Mr. DeSantis and with Mr. Tim Scott, who was quick last night to point out that the decline and demise of our nation, perhaps our nations in general, stems from our acceptance of aberrant ideologies and our willingness to accept the notion of discarding previously sacred fundamental foundations that our nation or nations were built upon, that helped build and elevate our country and of course, its people. Faith and family are, let me stress the words, are two essential components that have seemingly been abandoned, and we are seemingly ready, willing, and able to do so. Family is, at least in the past, and should be again, at the core of every country, with an emphasis on maturing our children, educating them not only scholastically, but using friends and family and the family unit as well as school in making them worldly, preparing them to take over, to make the world a better place for them and the next generation. We should teach them that they are entitled to absolutely nothing. Once they walk out that door, we may see them as king and queen, but they're nothing to the world, and it's hard work that will afford them life's luxuries. We need to bring back family dinners after work, where everyone sits at the table and discusses their day. We need to bring back core family units, replete with mother, father, and extended family, and friends, where brothers, sisters, and friends are not necessarily in competition with each other. Though let me digress and say competition is in fact good in many cases and teaches and encourages the idea to strive and do better. But we need to bring back the idea that family and friends are there to help each other, not to attempt to outdo each other. In addition, it should be mandatory to bring back the concept of religious services every Saturday for those of Jewish faith and perhaps every Sunday for those of Christian faith, even if worship takes place in your own home. Faith, including family dinners at grandma's, are useful in helping to teach culture, tradition, and to build family bonds and promote family values, cultures, and ideologies, which have seemed to willingly have disappeared. We need to put policy in place that people, including corporate executives who are greedy, cannot become wealthy overnight. Prices for the average American people, the average Joe from whatever country, need to be affordable. Must be affordable, with the emphasis on must, even for those at the lower end of socioeconomic spectrums. Because let's face it, if we didn't have those who stock the shelves and the comestibles, those comestibles would not be readily available for those of us who want to walk in and conveniently pick our favorite product. Those who do the hard work are the ones who make our lives easier. So life has to be somewhat affordable for these people too. As long as they are working hard, they should also be able to strive to reach their version of the American dream. We need essentially to bring common sense back into society and into our schools. Schools are on the downgrade, including public schools. Since we the people actually do pay for them through our exorbitant and often outlandish taxes, schools have to go back to the basics and become emporiums once again of education and not camps of indoctrination. We need to bring back uniforms or dress codes, both in public schools and in private schools, and not only for the students, but also for the teachers, which, by the way, should not have nose rings or purple hair and who should keep their private lives private and out of the classroom. Sure, it may be acceptable to drink on the weekends or to have an 18-year-old walk into a strip club, but I wouldn't want a stripper, heterosexual or otherwise, in my 10-year-old's classroom. Nor do I want him privy to what his teacher believes or what he or she does on the weekends. Let's take a what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas approach. Let's think back to a few years ago. Years ago, people were expected to have decorum. It was essential with a capital E that people presented themselves according to their status or their degree of education. You would have to dress accordingly to your profession, and you would have to keep up appearances during the weekend. After all, you were still a representation of the facility, the faculty, the company, or the corporation for which you work. And you had to continue, even if your own time, to put your best foot forward. This is simply common sense. But rather than trying to bring back logic, we are now kowtowing to people like Mr. Fetterman, who is causing us to relax dress codes for the Senate, making acceptable for prominent, powerful professionals to go to work in loungewear. And then, ironically, we have the expectation that these people put proper policy in place when they can't even monitor themselves. They can't do the right thing by themselves. Have we lost our proverbial minds? A big roundtable issue last night was the border and the human trafficking, and of course the drug trafficking. Well, I have a saying, if there's no supply, there is no demand. Of course, the border wall is a good answer to a degree. But as some of the candidates pointed out, it's not enough as cartels are digging tunnels under the walls. But again, if there's no supply, there's no demand. And we need to address this problem not only with a wall, but with our militia. In addition, we need to shoot first and ask questions later. We need to stand as a powerful nation that sends a clear and concise message to any salacious individuals, both within our nation and outside, who want to cause us despair, damage, and destruction. Our message has to be one that conveys strength through powerful policy and military intervention. Yes, we do have to care about those seeking refuge. But like my 10-year-old son, who began his immigration to Canada when he was just 4 and is still not legal, with his paperwork still pending, we have to stop caring about those outside our immediate family, country, nation, whatever, and start caring about those within close quarters. It's one thing to want to help and to be available to give help and aid and assistance. But it's quite another to deprive your own family, your own nation, your own country in efforts to do right by or better for others outside your immediate family, realm, country, or nation. As far as human and drug trafficking is concerned, let's not play pity party. Though I do genuinely feel bad for those who've lost loved ones to drugs and for innocent young children who are being smuggled over the border. However, whether you like it or not, here's the cold, harsh, hard truth. Like I said before, if there was no demand, there would be no supply. I don't see any dog crap cartels smuggling dog crap over the border. Why? Well, probably because there's little to no demand for dog crap. But thanks to the likes of Jeffrey Epstein and his cronies, we have a large demand for youngsters and children to be smuggled over the border. Fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other drugs? Hey, the government themselves has decriminalized these drugs, including marijuana, which some states are now trying to recriminalize because they are now beginning to see the negative effects, which are a byproduct of their pathetically poor policy. Yes, you can get fentanyl smuggled into almost any legal drug. But again, for the most part, we live in a society of dependence. We live in a society of entitlement. Men and women need help coping with just about everything. Really? Did people during the Great Depression, those of World War II, etc., need help coping? I don't believe as much as we do today. Most men and women were expected, with a capital E, to man and woman up and take it on the chin like mature adults. And yet, we have men and women taking pills for just about everything. They're taking things like Ozempic to lose weight. Why? Because it's an easy fix, an easy way out. Want to lose weight? Shut your mouth. Cut your portions. Walk instead of drive. Drive rather. Join the gym. Get a treadmill. It may take you longer, but you will get there. Let me emphasize, will get there. As far as kids and adolescents are concerned, many, or more than many, are turning to outside assistance to help them cope through adolescence and uncertainty. And back in my day, most of us did not turn to outside substances for help. We got through adolescence on our own. Why? Because drugs were frowned upon. And besides, we didn't look to others and see them doing the same. Let's face it, what one man or woman can do, another can do. But how can we expect children not to get addicted when addiction is all around them? From their favorite pop stars and pop idols to their parents and other adults that make an impression on their impressionable lives. And let's not forget to mention that the schools are now complaining about virtually every little thing children do. Yep, in my day, you rarely got a complaint because the parents would put you in their place. They're complaining about kids chatting and fidgeting and labeling kids as ADD and ADHD. But ADD, ADHD are essentially what children are. Children are fidgety, children are chatty, but they're quickly put into counseling and on medications, making them, I guess, more vulnerable to addiction as they get older. So basically, again, we have to blame the adults in the room. We would not have young people overdosing on fentanyl if they weren't already addicted to some form of medication starting in their elementary educational years. Because, in my opinion, the schools have become inept and unwilling to handle immaturity in children. We have become a society that excuses immaturity in adults, such as Mr. Fetterman, and the list goes on, but we are unwilling to cope with natural childhood behaviors simply because they are inconvenient to the adults in the room. And so the demand for drugs and drug supply goes up. And we have become a society that is mentally inept, a society that would rather live in the streets rather than in the house because homes have responsibilities, and people generally seeking greater and greater vices to get through life. So what else can I complain about? How about our unsafe neighborhoods as we decriminalize drugs, defund the police, and allow criminals to justifiably loot, justifying their salacious behavior based on their oppression due to race, religion, and other non-existent rhetoric? How about our obesity problem? Adults are obese basically by choice because, again, the family has been eradicated and dismantled. There are no family dinners anymore. There is no healthy dining at home. We eat out most of the time or have Uber Eats deliver right at our feet at our door because we've become so lazy. Women, or many, have no idea how to cook and are more busy Botoxing their lips to look like they can suck a lemon rather than squeeze a lemon. Why? Because they want to compete with those on Instagram and TikTok, and they want to compete with their children. They don't want to realize that every age and stage of life is beautiful, even if the definition of that beauty changes. That's not to say that you can't stay fit and fabulous at every stage of life. You just have to accept that every stage and age is different. That's all. How about bringing shop and workshop back to the schools to teach young boys how to be men, real men, who can build and use their hands and take care of their house and home and family? How about teaching young ladies how to be ladies, not just women, to sew and cook, etc., so that they too can positively contribute to the family that they hopefully someday will have? How about bringing back hot lunches to schools? Hot lunches prepared not by line cooks, but by burgeoning young chefs who will be able to prepare gourmet-style meals for children, expanding their palates rather than having them snack on Doritos and chips and cookies. How about doing what they do in Asia rather, since we seem to be so ready to accept ideas from around the globe? How about having schools plant their own gardens and vegetables and cultivate them? Maybe have a chicken coop and teach children about agriculture through experience. Maybe even consider having some kids help out in the kitchen while others serve and help clean up. Consider punishing children or teaching them a lesson by having them stay after school, not for detention, not to demean them, not for extra homework to overwork them, but to help clean up the facilities, to make their environment a better place for them and their peers and their educators. Why not get rid of smartboards in the classroom and have children learn the art of articulation and writing by taking notes and verbalizing what they just learned, heard, read, or saw? Okay, all right, maybe keep the smartboards to show movies on or to give lifelike examples of things, but let's not inundate our children with screen time on Chromebooks when parents are desperately trying to get them off tablets at home. As far as I'm concerned, we need to make America not only great again, but retro again. I want small businesses to succeed, which means we have to make it more and more difficult for the likes of companies like Amazon to succeed. What does that have to do with anything? Well, actually, not too much per se, because I too enjoy ordering from Amazon. Very convenient. But it takes away from mom and pop stores, brick and mortars, where I'd be forced to drive, maybe with my mom or a friend or family members, to go out to the store and pick something out by myself off a shelf, something perhaps made in America or made in your country of origin, a product that puts food on the table of hardworking individuals, entrepreneurs of all factions. Friday nights could be a night like when I grew up, where you would go to the mall with friends and family. Not necessarily to shop, but perhaps just to browse, to window shop with the men playing in the arcade, and then grabbing a bite to eat or catching a movie or both, so that both children and adults could have both an outing and the ways and means to socialize. This is so much better than connecting via a computer, which depletes us, all of us, from any social interaction and the skills necessary for it, and has made most people antisocial. Restaurants should once again be seen as a luxury. People should want to dress up to go out once or twice, or perhaps thrice a week, to enjoy and escape from the everyday rhetoric and routine. All of the above are kitchen table issues affecting all of us. Issues that American, average people from all nations struggle with and debate about on every level on any given day. And these are the issues that our politicians, or want to be politicians, are skirting around and or avoiding. Primarily because many want to be liked, voted for, and politically correct. People need to stop thinking that they have to like their politicians any more than you have to like your doctor. If he can cure your cancer, who cares what he or she looks like? Stop caring about who your politician is in bed with, how many times he or she has been married, how handsome or beautiful he or she is. And let's focus on the core issues. Let's focus again on the round table, kitchen table issues that affect us all. And let's, by all means, start voting for the person, the employee or employees we the people hire to do our bidding. Not theirs, but ours. The politicians who will make our lives, not theirs, better and easier.